Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the fourth episode of Innovation Alley. Today we're in New York City, and we've got a really exciting topic to go today. I'm Tim O'Rourke, Chief Technical Officer, host of this show. Dave White can't join us today because the collective egos between the two of us couldn't fit a third person. And you'll understand what that means as we get through this discussion today. So today I've asked Tom Brzezinski, our Chief Business Development Officer at Wade Trim, to join us to talk about the marriage between innovation and business development and sales, right?
Thanks for having me.
Well,
I love the new office.
We'd like to have you here. You ought to come a little bit more often.
Yeah,
but,
I will.
So, Tom, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, what your role is? I mean, I've known this guy now for, 32 years?
It's been a long time. Yeah. So, like Tim said, I'm the Chief Business Development Officer at Wade Trim, responsible for growth, selling work, getting new clients. We've got a really cool footprint in the United States, and I think in every area where we have different technology needs. You know, the stuff that we do in Florida is totally different than the stuff we do in New York, which is totally different than the stuff we do in Dallas. So you've got to adjust technology as you go.
And you have used innovation, I mean, it's hard to believe, but you have used innovation and technology to win and do work. We were talking before the show about one of the examples that I like to use at Miami Beach.
Right.
What we call the dry weather flooding issue that was going on down there with the tides rising up.
Right.
You sold a job and convinced a client of a technology and an innovation, if you will. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about that?
It's more like the application of the technology. What's happening still in Miami Beach, the city of Miami Beach, is that during dry, sunny days, the tide will come up through the storm system into the street and basically flood a good part of the Miami Beach. So basically what the solution was to raise the roads and get all of the roads out of the water. The problem is you can't raise the existing buildings. So you could raise the roads, but the buildings and the sidewalks are still down very low. So we had to create a drainage system that would keep the roadways dry and basically pump stormwater and the ocean faster, faster than it was entering the streets. So you would have the ocean coming up, and our stormwater pumps would keep up with it and basically fight it. The key, though, is how do you maintain the drainage systems down below, underneath the sidewalks, which are significantly lower. So we created ways to connect those pipes into the storm system as well, and did all that. And it's been a great success for the city.
So, I mean, the client, did they come to you with the idea, or did you kind of germinate what some of the options were and thinking out of the box?
So it was one of the first ones that were done in the city. It was actually the first one, and they didn't have any technology selected for it at all. In fact, they were unsure if it could actually be done because of the way that the geometry was in this certain area. So we basically sat down together with about 3 engineers, and we just got on a whiteboard and started brainstorming and coming up with ways to apply existing technology in a different way to solve a problem.
And you just nailed it, because I think innovation in its core is applying existing technologies in a new, innovative way, more so than not. I mean, sometimes it's somebody invents something brand new.
Right.
But a lot of times it's just taking something that's kind of common and weaving it a different way and coming up with a new solution.
Exactly.
That's exactly what you guys did there. You know, our careers were pretty similar. Growing up at Wade Trim, I started in 1990. You were a couple years before that. That means we're old.
Well, you're older now.
Yeah, well, but I look better, right? I mean, folks. But this has been a camaraderie and competition for 30 years. But we started really in the early going doing combined sewer overflow treatment in southeast Michigan. And
first in the country.
The first in the country. And we weren't thinking, wow, this is innovation in the sense of how do you properly treat stormwater mixed with sewage. And it became second nature to us. But I remember going through all of those iterations, and it's the same kind of thing. Get a lot of bright minds together and start looking at brainstormed ideas.
Yeah, well, what we were doing is they were demonstration projects, right? You were working on 3 for Wayne County, and I was doing 3 for the city of Detroit. And
my 3 performed better, I think.
Your 3 performed better, but we made more money on my 3.
I'll give you that.
So, but what was cool about that is you would use a certain technology on one of your basins, and I would use a certain technology on one of my basins, And then the clients were able to, take a look at it over the years, and the CSO technology that's being applied today is the success of the things that we did back in the early 90s.
The origins of a whole disinfection strategy, all of that kind of originated when we were kids.
Right.
So,
but like you said, that technology wasn't created for CSO. We were taking wastewater technology and applying it to a combined sewer.
Yeah, not to turn this show into us bragging about ourselves for a half hour.
Why not?
I got nothing better to do. You want it? I got a lot more stories like that. No, but I can go back to, he and I went to Michigan State. I was 4 years ahead of him. And I remember we were at a Michigan State game, and this is right after we got through those projects, right?
Right.
And we decided that, okay, we need to evolve from this and take weight trim to other locations and other places, learning this innovation that we had gained in the demonstration and applying it in other markets. And we decided right then, okay, let's start with Cleveland and go from there and see what happens. And you moved to Florida, I don't know, mid-2000s, right? Similar approach.
Yeah.
Let's take some of these innovations that we did. But a lot of the challenge of that is, how do you convince a client, A, who you are? Do you bring something to them that is of value, right?
Right.
And how do you marry the solutions with the proper sales technique, right? How do you not sound like a salesman when you're bragging about yourself about these technologies?
Right. Well, the good thing about me is I'm not a technology guy. All right, and
that's true.
It's very true. But when I go and talk to a client and you hear what their problem, like Miami Beach, you hear what their problem is, you take it back to the people that work in the office with you, who are usually extremely smart. And because I don't have all the answers technically, I sit in a room and I can just ask them questions about the problem that this client's having. They typically don't, technology people seem to be very linear.
Right,
often,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
And since I'm not linear, I can just sit there and rattle, and then their mind gets kind of scrambled, and then all these good ideas start coming out. Right. And then you take those solutions back to the client and say, look at these things we thought of, and I think these are kinds of things that could solve your problem. Going in and saying, hire us, we can fix your problem, without the ability to show them how you're going to fix it.
They have to see it.
They got to see it.
They have to see it.
They got to see it.
And you're talking about communication being the key core to it. Another example of one that I went through when I was in Cleveland, we had this whiz kid that you let me take from Detroit. Remember Sam Glovic?
Yeah.
He is, he went to University of Michigan, which is kind of a problem for us, but he's a genius. That was a joke, folks. I mean, U of M's a great.
Is there a laugh track that goes?
Yeah, there's a laugh track with this. This is a great school. U of M's a great school. Sam was a advanced hydraulic, kind of modeler, right? And he, he's in mid-20s at the time, was able to work with the University of Minnesota and use their surge model for closed conduits, like huge tunnels. Mm-hmm. And we were starting to do that work for the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, and they had just finished a bunch of tunnels without doing a surge analysis. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to explain to them, this is something that you should do, because if you follow what happened in Chicago, geysers are a real phenomenon you need to worry about with unsteady filling. Long story short, it was hard to explain to them the phenomenon. Sam ended up creating a viewer from the mixed train output so you could see the actual hydraulic grade lines moving.
Yeah.
And when you see them moving several feet above the surface, you go, ooh, that's not good, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we basically sold to them. We had to, like you were saying, you had to show it to them.
Right.
Because the first reaction when somebody's trying to tell you about something new is, what's your angle? Mm-hmm. What's in it for you?
Right.
And we're not, that's not our culture.
No.
So we try to become the trusted advisor that says, this is what you need to be thinking about. Maybe if it works for you, right? So we've been going through, as you know, because you're on the board with me, the whole advancement of technologies and what we should be investing in and what kind of innovations we should adopt.
Right.
If you watched our podcast, which I heard you haven't.
I am. I'm going to watch this one. I'll see this one.
You need to start watching these.
I will.
It's good stuff, Jerry. It's good stuff. But what you invest in and what you develop, whether it be reality capture that we've done or whether it's optomatics or whatever these. One of the challenges that when we brought this up at an earlier podcast, right, when we had some other guests, is how do you get past okay, we've invested in it, there's an expense there, and it's now a capability we have, but we're not getting it in front of our clients well enough. The client service management team isn't A, aware if that's the case, or B, see the value and are actually getting it in front of the clientele, knowing that you're bringing something in front of them that might sound self-serving and salesy, right? Mm-hmm. So I think what we try to do is say, let's give importance to the technology arm and marry it with the sales and operational arm and try to give it equal, if not equal, a fair shake in all of it.
Right.
And you've been supportive in the, yes, we're going to invest in that, and yes, we need to get some of these ideas in front of our clients, if for no other reason, for sales.
Right.
But so what do you see as the challenges with that, though, and as innovations are being developed, how to get the client service management team educated, aware, excited, and then getting it in front of the users, ultimately the users?
Yeah, I think it starts with, everybody's busy right now. They don't have time to, market as much as we used to. But I think one of the things we do really well in-house is that we show these tools, these technologies to our staff, so they're aware of them. But they need to figure out a way to apply these technologies to their clients. So, one of the things that I do is when I go and talk to a client is I talk about some of the things that we have, the tools that we have. I don't know what your problems are dealing with, Mr. Client, right now. You have a conversation, you start hearing things, and you say, we've got something that, we have an individual that's got this tool that I'd like to come and bring to you. And it's always good to have a reason to go back and see a client.
With a technical expert or
with
whatever.
a technical expert, yeah. I mean, that just validates the whole thing. And
but what you just said there, which I think is critical, is you had a working knowledge.
Yes.
Hey, we have this tool. I'm looking at the camera now, as I said. We have this tool. It is of value to you potentially. I may not know enough about it to tell you exactly how it works and what the applications exactly that you need from it.
Yeah.
But I've got a couple people that do, and I'd like to have another chance to come and explain it to you.
Well, and I think one of the other thing, we just recently won a pipeline job, and in the pursuit of that project, pipeline jobs aren't that exciting to chase, right? I mean, there's not a lot of technology that goes alongside of them. Well, I knew we had this Navis, thing. I didn't really know much about it. I had one of our guys, Jason Yaskovitz, come down to Tampa, which is where I live, and I had him explain to me what this thing does. And then once I understood it, I started asking him, can it do this? Can it do this? Can it do this? And then I started learning about, what this thing can do and how I could apply something that's typically used for a building or a facility to a pipeline job. And we actually found some ways to use it. We talked about it in our proposal. We found ways to expedite the schedule for the client, and we ended up winning the job.
I remember watching the interview for that project, and that's one of the things I think I heard from the client is you guys poured a lot of innovation into this proposal, right?
Yeah. So sometimes you just got to sit down with people and technologists, and again, if I knew the answers, I probably would have never asked all the questions. But by me asking those questions, he started explaining to me how we could apply this. We're getting to the point now, getting on this Navis thing, which I think is cool, is how do we start taking that information, that data, and tying it into asset management systems and
also
GIS
building into digital twin worlds and model-based design, because it's the starting point of all of it.
Right. And I can see one of your next questions is where's technology going right there.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. So this is not the Tom Brzezinski show; it's the Tim O'Rourke show. But well, yeah, you can interview me. I don't care. But at the end of the day, there's an inverse to this too, Tom. Is that you're a genius at sales that has this working knowledge of technology and how to bring it all together. But I think the other challenge for us and for technical people in general, how do you take your technologists and turn them into salespeople without getting into rabbit holes and losing the client as they're diving into a technique? You can tell. I see it all the time when I'm with some of my technical partners. You're losing them. You're losing them.
Yeah.
Pull back. You're losing them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard for them to understand and see because they just think this technology is so obvious. And so some of it is training our technologists.
Well, you just said it. Sometimes you go up to somebody and you say, "Hey, I've got this problem. We've got to write an approach and a proposal." And right away, the technical guy is so smart. He's like, "Well, that's not a difficult thing. You don't even have to talk about that."
Right.
But to the real world, it is a thing. So you've got to get them to explain to themselves that it's a critical issue,
right.
even though they don't believe it is because they solve them every day.
So back when you were we called the contract PC 744, but you were a program manager at the Detroit wastewater plant for what, 4 years? 5 years?
5 years, something like that.
And so you were literally, and I had a similar experience with the sewer district in Cleveland for 5 years, where you're literally on the program management team, you're the program manager, you're one of them.
Right.
And now you're getting barraged with these technology ideas, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you go through that when you were at Detroit? And how were you able to filter there's something here versus that sounds like crap to me? How did you? We're allowed to say crap because we're sanitary engineers, but it's okay.
Again, my role on that job was not a technical role as a program manager. I was just the person managing it. But I I knew the problems that we had on the job, so I listened to the way these people would solution. But I ground truthed it with our design people, our technology people, and we were co-located with the owner. So once we came up with some of the technologies we thought we wanted to use, then we'd bring the owner in and see if they were interested in doing it. We actually did some pilot testing as well out at the plant. And I think when you start, if you've got the time and the money, I think pilot testing, especially at wastewater plants where, every wastewater stream is different, technology is going to react differently to it.
Yeah, and that's a huge advantage when you're at that plant. It's the biggest plant in North America, right?
Yeah.
My experience was in the inside, where I wasn't part of the plant at that time with the sewer district. I was inside the building working with the engineers, and we would get all kinds of products, all kinds of new technologies. And my biggest frustration, I think, with the folks who would come in, if they weren't connecting me with it, did you even do your homework? Right. To know why this wouldn't work for us? Mm-hmm. And I don't want to give any specific examples because it would be self-serving, but come educated when you come talk to me. Come understanding what my challenges are before you start trying to pitch a new technology. So that's one of the challenges too, is don't just take an abstract idea and treat it like it's a hammer and everything's a nail to me, right? Right. It's got to be the right tool for the right application, right? And so there's a little bit of homework to do.
Yeah, I think buying technology for buying technology's sake doesn't make a lot of sense. I think, here's a Wade Trim plug, I think that the way Wade Trim does it is we will actually use technology to lower our fee. We will shrink a job if we can using technology or some other way of delivering it, right? Whereas some people who don't do their homework and just want to sell you a piece of equipment to generate revenue, I don't think that makes sense. You're not doing your clients any good.
All right, now I'm going to read one of these questions.
Make it an easy one, would you?
Well, this is a tough one I know you won't be able to get. Is there a technology from another industry you'd like to see adopted on any of our projects?
Well, I don't know if this technology is from a different industry or not, but I think the Navis that we talked about. Yeah. I think Google Earth for horizontal pipeline jobs is going to just get more and more. So, for instance, we flew the drone. We got some special drone. I don't know. It gives you all the contours within an inch. Okay. So you could fly 25 miles of a pipeline corridor. You could take that information from the drone. You could start designing it tomorrow while you're waiting for final survey to get done. All right. Yep. So now all of a sudden you're way ahead of the design curve, right? Then when the new survey comes in, you drop it in place and away you go. Our president, Andy McCune, believes that eventually Google, you're gonna go to Google and you're gonna say, I want to put a pipe from A to B. You're gonna hit a button and they're gonna give you plans and specs for it.
Yeah, there's a huge belief that there's, efficiency tools like that will replace engineers. It really won't replace engineers.
But I don't agree with him because he's probably the least technical person we have.
That would be a true statement. Yeah, that's true. The other example of this that is already happening in our industry is satellites. That came from the space industry, right? Mm-hmm. And now that I forget, we interviewed Marcus Quigley from ESCG a couple months ago, and he was telling me how many new satellites have been put in the the orbit since 2018. Like 6 or 7 times what was there before. Whatever the number was, and I know I got it wrong. Pretty soon you're going to be able to do what you're talking about with Navis and drones from outer space. Right. And read real-time changes in in lake levels and whatever it is you're trying to manage for that. So it is kind of exciting. But I don't think it's going to replace engineers. I think it's going to augment engineers and get us to be able to do things we should be doing versus busy work, right?
Right, exactly.
So what was your greatest sale of all time? And I'll have a better one once you come up with it. No, but
I don't know if you ever have the greatest sale. I think every sale is different. I mean, I've certainly lost a lot of jobs I should have won. I've won a lot of jobs I should have lost. But I think the best job that the one that felt the best was the Isla Morada. It was a large $130 million septic sewer.
Tell people about that one. Yeah.
So it was a great job. We went in with a $54,000 task order, and we finished with over $10 million worth of fees. It was great work down on the Florida Keys. What a great bunch of people to work with. And but what's cool about that one is, and that's kind of got a technology spin too, is Wade Trim didn't have a lot of septic to sewer experience using vacuum technology.
Right, I remember that.
And the village was very adamant that they wanted to use vacuum sewer. Now they were under an unfunded mandate to sewer all the village, which, if you don't know, it's a chain of 4 islands down on the Florida Keys.
Right.
So they had a $130 million unfunded mandate. They didn't have any money to pay for it. They didn't have a wastewater plant. So basically what we did is we came up with a plan for them. We taught ourselves vacuum technology, working very closely with some manufacturers and suppliers of the vacuum system. They struggled. They had a 10-year mandate. For the first 5 years, after hiring numerous consultants, they couldn't get the job done. Yeah. And they ended up hiring us to be their program manager, and we got the job done under budget and within 5 years, and it was great.
That was the first big hit water resources in Florida too, right?
That was our first big job.
And that's what we sent you down there for, so that was a huge one.
Yeah.
What was the name of that bar? Was it Green Turtle?
I've never been to a bar in my life.
Now we're lying. Okay.
Yeah, the Green Turtle.
The Green Turtle. I remember we got some stories about the Green Turtle that won't show up on his podcast.
We had we had one guy that lost English, the ability to speak English during that. Roger.
We don't have to cut, but how do you keep up with technology trends is a general question. I'm asking you as a CBDO, but it's really, like I said, you and I grew up together in this company along with Andy and Dave DePietro and others, and this is our company now, and we really do act like partners.
Mm-hmm. We do.
And I remember when I went through the EFCG technology conference I did, they were asking about this chief technical officer position and how it works really well at Wade Trim. As much as I wanted to take that as a compliment, being an incredible,
human being.
Yeah. Well, no,
just a
CTO.
No, you're the greatest person in the world.
But the real reason is that we at Wade Trim gave the position authority, and then filled it with someone who had probably street cred. If you were the CTO,
that would be good.
Well, no, you'd do a good job with it, I'm pretty sure. But
not as good as you.
Well, I mean, the statements of obvious. But that we created a partnership. We're all filling the pieces that made sense, and we're all kind of equally positioned in the sense that we work together to make sure every one of our elements work. And for us in the technology trends, it was someone needs to be staying up at night worrying about whether we're staying innovative, staying ahead of the technology.
I think you and I approach technology totally different when it comes to getting into a client, and I'll tell you how. You are at the front of understanding the technology, and then you take it along to the client and say, "Here's the things I have." The way I do it, because I'm not in your seat, you're not in mine. I still have a lot of personal relationships with our clients. I love getting with clients. I love getting in front of clients. I love talking to clients. When I hear from them that they have a problem, then I come back and find the technology that you have. Right. So you're pushing from the technology side. I'm pushing from the client side. And I know you're very involved with clients like I do.
I think you're underselling your technical prowess, though. I've seen you with very little knowledge of something sound like you know a lot about it.
Yeah.
And I think that was a compliment.
I'm not going to take this as a compliment.
And I think we both try to do the other side of it.
No,
This is a relationship business at the end of the day, and it's how do you build trust with these ideas.
Yeah.
So if you had some closing thoughts, I mean, what advice would you give other chief business development officers that are also dealing with the same competition that's going on right now, just trying to win work, but also technology is now becoming a differentiator? And what kind of advice would you give others?
It's the easiest advice to follow. It's the easiest advice to listen to, and it's the hardest advice to follow. Spend time with your clients. Everybody in our industry is really, really busy right now, and they're busy delivering work. The clients can feel the consultants that are not getting things done on time, and they can feel the ones that are getting done on time. I don't know how much face-to-face interaction is being done with the consulting world and the owners. I know I push for face-to-face meetings all the time. In this virtual world that we're into today, everybody prefers to talk through a computer, and I think a lot of stuff gets lost. Now, that being said, a 1-hour meeting takes you 3 hours because you got to go to it, have it, and come back. But you're not gonna hear the problems the clients have over the television.
So you've always been everything in person is better.
Yeah.
And humans are still humans, and communication is still communication.
Right.
And we're communicating a lot better now than we would be if we're on a Teams call right here.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
well, that's kind of bringing to a close our fourth podcast. I got to tell you, it's been an honor to have an industry icon and a weight trim legend.
Ooh, that had to hurt.
And Tom, it's nice that you were here too. But this has been great. We're obviously friends.
Thanks for having me.
We're obviously friends, and it's been a great 30-some year run, and we hope to have many more. And
You think you got 10 more left in you?
to live or to do, I could
work.
I could do whatever I can do. Yeah, sure, sure.
Good to have you around for another 10.
Is this your show or my show? We'll be around. We'll be around as long as it takes. So, I'll tell you what. It was a good topic today. You were a great guest for this.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Honestly, this guy is as good at sales and business development as I've ever seen in the industry. And that's going to bring a close to our fourth podcast. So join us next month. Where we got a really interesting topic, right? We're going to be talking about One Water with a University of Michigan professor, Glenn Diger.
Oh, good. Oh, Michigan guy, huh?
Yeah, he's a Michigan guy. Yeah.
Ouch.
So we may be back to our hometown of Detroit and do another one. So
Good.
thanks for coming to New York, and
Good
thanks
seeing
for.
you.
Take care, man.
Thanks.